pleasure to introduce Sara Sorensen. It seems like Sara has a lot of friends in this room, so I'm sure we're all happy to hear from her. Sara is an environmental scientist that spent nearly 15 years working in public service for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. We could probably do like a whole session just on that, I think. Yeah. Although not working in the public sector today, Ms. Sorensen remains passionate about service, the environment, and the connections between creativity and science. As a lifelong learner, Sara wants to bring to others an aha moment that happens every day in her life and create a place where imaginations run wild and the possibilities are endless. So welcome, Sara.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Lois, for a nice introduction. And I also want to thank Joe Smith for helping me coordinate some time with you this morning to share with you MOMI's vision and why we feel we need a new children's museum here in the Morris County area. And there's no better way to share this vision than with a group such as yourself, because the Rotaries, as I found out talking to Children's Museum founders and executive directors all over the country, is that the local Rotaries really are friends of Children's Museums, because you really are the ears and the eyes of the community. So I'm looking forward to sharing our vision and then hearing. Sorry?
We're having lighting issues.
Lighting.
Put the side lights on.
We're not trying to create a disco effect for you.
That's okay. Hey, you know what? I'll roll with it.
Good. Turn off the big one.
Whatever. So I'm very excited to be here. Okay. So I have a few slides, but I want to leave some time at the end to hear from you if you've been to any museums that you have had these aha moments. Lois mentioned that I have these aha moments all the time. Again, I'm an environmental scientist by training. Before I even knew what an environmental scientist was, at a very young age, I always knew I wanted to learn as much as I can on whatever subject. And it drives my husband nuts because I'm constantly saying, well, don't you think about this? Don't you think about this? He's like, no, no, no. He's in sales, so he just thinks about the bottom line and how to keep his job. But anyway, so, but before I launch into my slides, I want to share with you exactly how did I get here? How am I standing in front of you as the founder, one of the founders? We have two other women who are the founders of MOMI, Museum of Imagination and Innovation, because it's not every day that somebody wakes up and says, I want to build a $30 million museum. I don't know, maybe some of you have, I don't know, but as I talk to other people, there's not everybody wakes up and says that. But I really do feel that we need something like this in our community. So it was January 2017, my family and I traveled to Naples, Florida. And we went down there expecting sand and sun. I have two toddlers, but what we got was rain and 55-degree weather. So it was not any vacation like we thought of spending all our time on the beach. So we had to really kind of think about what we were going to do with two toddlers. And so we did two things. We went to the Botanical Gardens of Naples, which has a wonderful children's garden. And the second thing is we went to the Children's Museum of Naples. And we spent about 3 hours there. And it was a wonderful experience for my family. So I had many aha moments, just the time that we spent with our children engaging in all kinds of different learning experiences. It's a wonderful museum. But the other aha moment that I had during that time was what I observed with other families. And we felt really part of this community museum, even though we were a visitor. What we saw is many different ages of children working together, playing together, innovating, creating, exploring, discovering. We saw parents, caregivers, grandparents with the little ones engaging. We didn't see people on iPhones, iPads, and so the museum really spoke to me. And so when I came back that weekend, I came back and I said, we need something like this in New Jersey. And so for the past 20 months, I've been traveling the country, I've gone to over 25 children's museums. I've talked to countless museum founders and executive directors and other museum professionals, exhibit designers, to try to learn as much as I can about the museum field. And also to learn about what New Jersey has already. And what we've learned is that we don't have anything quite like what I experienced at the Children's Museum in Naples. And the biggest part of why I'm here is that I want other New Jersey families to experience what I experienced. I don't feel like you should have to travel out of state or go to Manhattan to really seek out the experiences that I've experienced at these children's museums. So with that, our mission really is to build a museum that sparks curiosity, wonder, and a lasting love of learning. And how we do that is we build a museum that's really based on this idea of learning through play. And that, what learning through play means is really open-ended, okay? And it means that there is no right answer or wrong answer. It's about experimentation. It's about creativity. It's about exploring, discovering your world. And what we know is that you don't stop playing when you get older. Because if you look at any of the tech fields within the last 10 years, all that innovation comes, or even the biomedical field, all these innovations really start with tinkering, with playing, having the time to think critically through different problems. And that we want is create an experience for children of all ages. So we talk about building a children's museum, but the concept really of our museum is to build a museum that is for children of all ages. So whether you're 1 or 100, that you're going to come into the museum and you're going to experience aha moments, and you're going to learn something, and you're going to have fun doing it. And so what our vision really is kind of broken down into 3 things. So we want to build an educational and cultural institution that really is an extension of already learning institutions. So an extension of the classroom, the library, and the family room. So the idea of, that learning just doesn't happen in 3 different areas, that we want to be an extension of these other learning institutions. And then we want to build a museum that's hands-on, interactive exhibits and programs. And again, these are all based on this open-ended learning concept. And then we want to be a regional community space and an event space. So, and what that really means is that when you have a museum that really caters to all people, so it's inclusive of everybody, of all abilities. Some of the best museums I've been to have, special events for parents of military families that have PTSD. They have special events just for that. They have special times just for people that have families that have autism on the spectrum. They have rooms that are quiet rooms for sometimes when kids need a little time out, if it's too much going on in the museum. There's so many things that so many possibilities that a museum can offer to the community based on the community needs. So what we want to do is just not build a museum for the community, but really have the community build the museum. So we don't have a site yet for the museum. And that will come when we do a feasibility study, a market analysis, and a site selection. And that's not uncommon, because it takes about 7 to 10 years to build a children's museum. But in our travels, and as I talk to people, there are some minimum requirements. This is one of our inspirational museums here to your right, and that's the Scott Family Museum in Bentonville, Arkansas. It was opened in 2015. It has both indoor and outdoor space. And you can see just from the building itself, you haven't even gone in yet, but it's so inviting that you want to go in. So we want to build a building that is really state-of-the-art and that gets you excited before you're even in it. Because you almost know what to expect. If you know that the attention to detail has been given to the actual building, you know that you're in for something special when you go through the doors. And I have a slide that shows some of our inspirational other museums that we want that inspires MOMI. But basically, we want to build a museum that's at least 50,000 square feet. And to give you an idea what that means, I'm sure most of you have been to the Liberty Science Center. That's 300,000 square feet. So there's a big difference. And there's also a big difference in, big doesn't always mean better because their annual budget has to be $26 million to run that facility. So they got to raise that every year. That's a lot of money. We're more smaller scale. We're a different concept. We also want to have an outdoor area. And an outdoor area that's open all year round. And that is the trend for these newer children's museums, is that the learning doesn't stop in the winter time. We want to have an outdoor space that people can come and on those nice warm days that during the winter, because you get on some nice days, that they can actually go outside and explore. And of course, the other amenities like a cafe store and the classroom meeting event space. And then we want the museum certainly to be accessible, so having it located near public transportation, and then near parks or walking trails or something else to make sure that we don't want to have a museum just set somewhere where only people can drive to is kind of we would like to avoid. And of course, we want the building to be itself an educational opportunity to where it could be a green building, and we at this point we don't know if it's going to be a new building or a retrofit. That will come down the line. And here's some pictures of just inside some of the museums and kind of get an idea of what we offer. So the ones that say after parties, the after parties one's right here. When I talk about community hub and I talk about children's museum, in children's museum you don't have to have children necessarily to go to the children's museum. A lot of the new children's museums are really family museums, or they have a lot of these they call them after parties, and they're over 21, and they bring in lots of community, with businesses, and the idea is to bring the community together and to have fun. And we know that when you have fun and you bring learning into it and you play, that people connect. You meet new friends. You actually get to maybe interact with parts of the community that you didn't normally interact. Okay, and then of course exhibits, really great exhibits that make you think. And then like here's a maker space up here that you can play, and then a tinkery spaces. And the museum in Bentonville, Arkansas does something that we would like to duplicate. They have great programs. So one of their great programs is a Maker in Residence program. They bring in artists from all over the country to come in and do workshops for adults and children. So what they're doing is they're bringing in innovators in their own field, people who think outside the box and think outside maybe your own area. So we would be wanting to bring in people that exposing new ideas from other parts of the country. And then there's of course events. Some of the newer children's museums are offering where you can have your wedding or a corporate event there. And I mean, what a great, if you had a big family, extended family, what a great way to celebrate a special event, but then at a children's museum where everybody can have fun and play and be free to wander around all the exhibits. And then of course the workshops and classes are important. So, as I mentioned with the museum, that's one of our inspirational museums. So what we want to do is we want to bring the best of the best to New Jersey. Within the last 3 to 5 years, there's been kind of renaissance in the children's museum field. And there's been several museums that have opened that really have inspired us and made us think that if they're building these museums in these parts of the country, why can't New Jersey have something? And that's really kind of the take-home message. So we have one here, the MOXIE, which is open last year in Santa Barbara. The museum, as I mentioned, this is the museum in San Antonio. The Minnesota Children's Museum in St. Paul opened up last year after a $30 million 6-year renovation. The Museum of Life and Science in Durham, North Carolina is wonderful. This is a hands-on Children's Museum in Olympia, Washington, the DuPage Children's Museum outside of Chicago, and the Thinkery in Austin, Texas. And I have many more on our list because all the children's museums have different parts that we feel like, oh, we want to bring that to New Jersey. But this just gives you a flavor. And if any of you have been to any of this, you know, at the end of the presentation, you know, please share your experience with the group here. So what's the benefit of building a new museum? Well, there's lots of different benefits. And the one idea that we have for MOMI is that we wanted to build a museum that it's not a science museum, it's not an art museum, but what it does is connects art with science, connects creativity with science. So that's really the fundamental concept of MOMI. But the benefit is that it's a regional hub, it's a benefit that's educational, cultural institution, and how it becomes a cultural and education institution is really the way it operates. So you look at some of the better museums, or the ones like the Inspiration Museums, they partner with with local universities. The staff is incredibly talented with experts in childhood education, with experts in the sciences and creativity. So the quality of the museum really is reflective of the quality of the staff. So we would want to bring, of course, the highest quality staff to the museum. It's a job creator, can create 70 to 100 employees when you're talking about a 50,000 plus square foot facility. It is significant to the economy. And then a tourist destination. Again, recently on one of my mom's Facebook clubs, there was a post by a mom who said, I have family, in-laws coming from South Africa. What are we gonna do? She has a 3-month-old, she has a 3-year-old, she's from New Jersey, so she has aunts and uncles and cousins. So we have all these different age groups. And she's like, where can I go that doesn't involve going into Manhattan, which is like a full day? And so the MOMI would be a perfect place for this family, especially like during the summer times where we've had crazy weather. We've had rainy days, hot, humid days. We've had, you know, all kinds of issues where you can't spend time outside. So to have an indoor place that appeals to everybody is really important. And I was just out in Boston a couple weeks ago. I went to the Discovery Center in Acton, Massachusetts, which is a children's museum. And I tell you, it was mostly filled with grandparents with their grandchildren. And it was a wonderful, and everybody was playing and having a good time. And you know, I mean, how many places can you go to where you can just let everybody run wild and nobody's looking at you like, will you please, you know, leave because you're too loud or something? So you really need a space like that. And then it really needs to be owned and operated by a nonprofit because we want the museum to exist in perpetuity. So you can only do that when you have a nonprofit. And we also, because we want it to be a community museum, it needs to be, you know, representative of the community. So, you know, having that board of directors, board of advisors, and things like that, to where you're constantly receiving input from the community on how to evolve your museum to fit the different needs of the community or the changing needs. So why build a new museum in New Jersey? Because we really do need for a safe, cost-effective, inclusive place that really promotes family learning. We need a place for indoor-outdoor that is really built on the principles of learning through play. And then many of the spaces right now that already exist in New Jersey are private spaces, so there's no guarantee that they'll be here in 5 years, a year, or 10 years, or whatever. And this picture right here is the new Buffalo Children's Museum that opens this fall, and it's a $30 million facility. And so if you're in the Buffalo area this fall, you might want to go by. This is the canal side. And what's interesting is there was just an article recently, actually last week, on the whole development of canal side, if you're familiar with Buffalo. So 10 years ago, it was like nobody went down there. Now, because the Children's Museum is being built, now there's all this huge investment. They're building condos, they're building there's a kayak, canoe place just signed a contract to have an outfitter. So now they're just bringing all these people down there. Now it's going to be the place to be for families. understand it. So this is why I'm here today, is to really gauge what your thoughts are and build support for the vision. And we are just preparing our 501c3 application. So once we do that, we're gonna do some fundraising to do that market analysis. That's kind of the first step, is to kind of see what the market can bear, where could we put the museum, and then do some pop-up events for the community to show the community exactly what we have to offer. And one of those pop-up events I'll just share with you is kind of taken from what the museum in Bentonville, Arkansas did. That first year that they opened, they have, and subsequently every year they have this whole weekend called Tinkerfest. And they bring in different artists and different things to kind of engage the community in tinkering, taking things apart kind of thing, and seeing how things work. And so one of the most popular parts of that weekend is taking apart a car. So that's one thing that we want to do. So like at one of these touch a truck events, everybody gets a signature, but how many people actually get to use a tool to take a car apart and to see how a car works? How does something, how does something fit in a certain way? And so that's kind of where MOMI steps in to really make people think, how things work, how should they work? And so you're lucky because you're our first kind of like group that we've come and spoken to, and so we're hoping that over the next few years that we can kind of spread the word. And there's one of our new museums that opens up in St. Augustine, Florida, just broke ground this year. And for the 5 years before they broke ground, they did over 70 community meetings to really get feedback from the community on what they want to see in a museum. And so they just broke ground. It's gonna be an amazing museum. It has a hydroponic roof. It's built in 3 different buildings and connected by gardens. And that's what the community wanted, so it's gonna be really neat. But we have a website, and then we have a Facebook page. In the Facebook page, we post a lot of information from other museums, because some of what the museums are doing are so incredibly interesting that we want to bring those ideas here in New Jersey. And that, because there's a lot of people who don't have the opportunity to travel to a lot of these other museums. Because these museums, as you saw on the one slide, is all over the country. There's wonderful ones. And then we have our bios on our website. And then these are the other 2 founders, Nicole Pitaluga and Isha Patel, that they couldn't make it today, but they're here in spirit and sends their best. So, thank you very much.